Hi, I'm Sheryl Scheuer, and I am a certified dementia education specialist and work with General Shepherd Dementia Training and Consulting. And one of the things that's really important to know about the conversation that we're going to have today, I've been a memory care director before. I have been a community educator with the Alzheimer's Association for 20 plus years and am a TIPA Snow certified trainer and consultant. But the biggest thing that I want you to know is that I am the daughter of a mother who lived with Alzheimer's.
Well, hello, Sheryl. Thank you for joining me today. I am so excited for you to have a chance to share some of your experiences with your own mother when it comes to dementia, but I also know you've got a lot of background in dementia training, which is a really valuable resource to our caregivers that watch. Let's start by having you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background and about your mom.
Okay. Well, I'm Sheryl Scheuer, and I have been a community educator with the Alzheimer's Association for over 20 plus years. Wow. Yeah, long time. I've been a memory care director. I've worked with hospice. And probably about 8 years ago, I heard about this lady called TIPA Snow and went on to become one of her certified trainers and coaches. And fast forward a couple of years, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and Mom was the most amazing lady. She was an artist, she was a musician, she was very much into her spirituality and her church. And as a professional working in Alzheimer's care, when it was my mother, it's so different when it's your own family member. So I learned a ton of tips and things when it was my own mother after being a professional.
I'm excited to hear more about that. I think a lot of people don't understand that there are nuances to it, different ways to communicate, different approaches, different tactics. So I'm really excited for you to share some of that with us today. So first of all, I would love to hear a little bit more about the communication aspect of dealing with somebody who has any form of dementia.
Okay. One of the things that we know about communication and dementia is that so often people think of dementia/Alzheimer's as memory loss, and it's not just memory loss. It's really how the person living with brain change perceives their world, how they respond to their environment, how they respond to the words. So I think the biggest thing about communication is that we as the care partner, and you notice I say the word care partner instead of caregiver, because caregiver gives you kind of the image of, ooh, I'm going to do something to you, whereas care partner, I'm right beside you.
Yeah, we're on the journey together.
Yeah, we're on that journey together. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned about communication is understanding the brain changes and understanding how I as a care partner can change the way I communicate with the person living with brain change.
Could you tell us a few of those tips and observations you've made over the years, not just with your training, but also with your own mom?
Yeah. Okay, so I think one of the biggest things about communication is understanding how the brain changes. So if you just take your own hands and make kind of a loose fist and hold it up to your head, this is about the size of a normal brain.
Okay.
And then take your fist, make it really tight, put it up next to your head again, and look at how small that is. Yeah. So as the disease of Alzheimer's or other dementias progresses, the brain shrinks. So the brain is not going to work the way that it used to. So we as care partners get to learn some of those changes so that we know how to communicate with them. So one of the big changes is visual changes.
Okay.
Whatever part of the brain is affected, it usually affects the vision of the person living with brain change. So just as an example, Laura, take your hands and make a scuba mask and look around and notice what you don't see.
Your peripheral vision.
Yeah, your peripheral vision. So one of the things that I learned with my mom, families all have a way of communicating, a way of being in the family. And very often with my mom, I would say, hey, Mom, come on, it's time for lunch. I would be in another room or a different part of the room, but she could not see me. So she would ignore me, and I would get so angry. I would get so frustrated. Mom, come on. Mom, come on. We got to go get some lunch. Mom, come on. And she wouldn't respond. She would either give me the deer in the headlights look or she wouldn't respond. Well, now that I know better and I learned better, I learned that, oh my gosh, she could not see me. I was not in her visual range. So when she heard my voice, she didn't know if it was me. She didn't know if it was the TV. Her brain could not process what the noise was. She heard it as noise instead of me talking.
So give me some ideas about what is the correct approach then?
Okay. Correct approach. And I really want families to understand that there's no right or wrong. There's tips that work. Because one of the things as a family care partner, guilt is something that's just part of who we are. So one of the tips to do is, we call it VVT.
Okay.
Visual, verbal, touch. So whenever we're having any kind of a communication, and this really worked with my mom. So one is visually make sure that I'm in Mom's visual space so that she could see, oh, this is Sheryl talking to me. It's not something on the TV. It's not something outside. So the visual connection first. And then the verbal connection is, I would always say to her, hey, Mom, it's me, Sheryl. And as she progressed in her disease, sometimes she would forget who I was. She just couldn't process who I was because her brain was seeing me as Sheryl, the little 6-year-old, instead of Sheryl, the adult. So I would always visually say, hey, Mom. Sometimes I would even say, hey, Carolyn, because if her brain was time traveling, she didn't know that she was my mom. And then the touch is so important. So touching can simply be touch their shoulder or touch their hand or somehow, but what we're doing is we're making that neural, N-E-U-R connection. Okay. Yeah. So the visual connection, the verbal connection, and a touch connection. And that makes all the difference in the world, instead of me across the room, hey, Mom, come on, it's time to go, blah, blah, blah. We've made a connection.
I think sometimes care partners become so task-oriented in their care process, and it can be difficult to slow down and remember that you're in their space, you're on their time.
And it's so important for us. Another tip to remember is what we call the 10-second rule. It takes the brain with dementia 10 seconds or longer to process the words and what they see.
I picked up on your slower cadence there.
And that's really hard for us as caregivers because we have an agenda. We got to get them to the doctor. We got to get them dressed. We got to get them bathed. We gotta. But we also get to slow down. So the 10-second rule is something to remember. Another thing that's really important to remember is, as the brain is changing, when I say something to the person living with dementia, nouns are the first words that they lose. So depending on where they are in their dementia, they might lose 1 out of 4 words. So we get to slow it down, the 10-second rule, and one concept at a time. Instead of saying, hey, Mom, we're going to go to lunch and we're going to have, oh my gosh, we're going to have that ham salad that you like so much, and oh my gosh, there's apple pie for dessert and hot chocolate. Her brain is not going to process all of that.
So segment it out.
Yes.
Parse
yes.
it out into a way that
yes.
is digestible.
Yeah, one concept at a time.
Okay.
Another tip going along with that is the last word that we say is probably what their brain is going to process.
Interesting.
So if I know I want Mom to wear her purple shirt because purple was her favorite color, I want to give her dignity. So I say, Mom, do you want the white shirt or the purple shirt? I already know she wants the purple shirt, but purple is going to be what her brain processes.
Yeah, that memory that she still retains.
Yeah.
So those are all great tips from Sheryl, the educator. Now let's switch gears, and I'd love to learn a little bit about, I mean, I'm sure you had failures and success, even applying the things that you've learned over the years. Tell us a little bit about some of the triumphs, the successes you've experienced, and maybe, you know, there was still some frustration, I'm sure. So tell us a little bit about how you navigated that as well.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing for me was being a dementia education specialist. I thought in my head I knew it all. And having been a memory care director, and when it was my mom, all those emotions were triggered. So I had to really consciously be the daughter, be in the moment. Because when I'm educating health professionals on how to, it's like, okay, do this, do this, do this, do this. But with my mom, I learned be in the moment. And we can learn so much from our person living with brain change. With my mom, I learned so many stories about her that I never knew from her childhood because I was in the moment asking her. I think one of the key phrases that I used a lot was, tell me more. And I learned so much from her. There were times that were horrendous. With her dementia, she had extremely severe hallucinations and delusions.
How terrifying for her.
And it was terrifying for her, it was terrifying for us, it was terrifying for her care staff at the care community she lived in. And what I learned from that is it's okay to feel emotions because it was a total role reversal. Mom had been my mom for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And then the roles were reversed where I was parenting my mom. Whoa, that was tough.
So in addition to that, you are the care partner for your mom even after she'd moved into a community.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that transition and maybe how hard it was to trust somebody else with the good work of loving on your mom on a daily basis.
It was tough. Originally, Mom was in a care community out in Oregon, and that was a horrendous experience there. And then when my dad died, we moved my mom here to Colorado Springs. So that whole transition of flying her here, getting all of the medical background and everything in place, that was a real challenge. Because I've worked in senior care for 20 plus years and hospice, I knew which care communities
You were
had the best care. So the one that we chose was absolutely wonderful for the whole year that she lived there. Their staff were very highly trained and very compassionate. And the hardest thing, it was like, think of it when you take your child to the first day of kindergarten or the first day of school and turning your child over to somebody else to care.
Trusting someone else, yeah.
That was tough. But the other thing that I learned through that process was how to become a mama bear in a non-challenging way, because my three sisters and I, we were very fortunate that the four of us were very much on the same page with Mom's care. But the challenge came sometimes with her care partners that were staff, how to educate them without coming across as mama bear, you're doing something.
Getting in their lane, so to speak.
Yeah. So one way that we learned to word it was to tell the staff or to share with the staff, hey, Carolyn likes this. So instead of telling the staff, don't do this, we would tell the staff, ooh, Carolyn likes this.
So you're encouraging behavior as opposed to discouraging and possibly creating bad feelings with the care staff. Yeah.
Right. But it was hard.
That's a great tip, actually, Sheryl. I love that.
Just to, be the mama bear. The other thing kind of going along with that, Mom had several hospitalizations, and one of the things that I really want families to know is you get to be the mama bear. You get to be the papa bear.
You are the advocate.
You are the advocate. When Mom was hospitalized, it was in another state. This was a teaching hospital, and they knew nothing about brain change, Alzheimer's, dementia, and everything that the hospital could do wrong with the environment, they did it wrong. My sisters and I stayed there 24/7 with Mom, and we had to educate the hospital staff on, hey, she's got dementia. This works. Don't do this, that, or the other. And in that case, we were mama bear.
Well, and I think that's pretty prevalent. I see a lot of that in my experience here in Colorado Springs as well, that, a hospital and a rehabilitation facility, their focus is on providing relief or treatment for diagnoses, physical things, not necessarily dementia related. So there's definitely, there's some room for improvement. I've seen even in the 12 years I've been in the senior space that it's improving, but it still has a little bit.
Still has a way to go.
Has a way to go.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about some of the tips and techniques for approach with someone with dementia. Now I want to touch on something that's a little more sensitive, and that's just in regards to behaviors.
Okay. I dislike that word behaviors, but that's the medical term. Here's one way for us as care partners to reframe that word behaviors. When someone living with brain change has a behavior, it's really let's look at it in the sense of it's a frustration, it's an unmet need, and they don't know how to verbalize or show us that something's not right. So here's an example with my mother. Later on in the disease, she was incontinent, and whenever she felt the urge to go to the bathroom, she would get very, very angry and lash out verbally at whoever was nearby. Well, what we learned was, her verbal outburst was she was trying to tell us something, but her brain couldn't put together the words to tell us what it is. So let's reframe that into what's the unmet need? Is there something in the environment that is agitating to them? As an example with my mom, the resident in the room next to her had his TV on with Westerns at top volume, and it was all the shoot 'em up, bang, bang noise. And for my mom, with her hallucinations and delusions, she thought that somebody was murdering somebody next door.
How terrifying would that be?
It was terrifying for herself and the staff. So Mom would go running out into the hall with her cane and start attacking whoever was there. Well, okay, so let's backtrack. Mom heard something in the environment that was foreign to her. She couldn't understand, she couldn't process what it was, so it showed up as medically what we call a behavior. Well, the unmet need was, it was at night, she needed her quiet, the noise was scary and unfamiliar. So once the staff realized that, they were able to turn the neighbor's TV sound down, and she was okay. The other thing about behaviors with us as care partners, especially as family care partners, our frustration level goes off the chart because we want to fix it. It's similar to when our kids were little and something was wrong.
It's problem solution.
Yes.
Right.
And we can't fix it. It's a disease. And one thing that I really want families to understand is the person living with Alzheimer's, brain change, any form of dementia, the person is not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. The person living with dementia is not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time.
And telling yourself that, I would think, helps you reframe and release some of that frustration or agitation you're experiencing as a result. Yeah.
The other thing, too, with somebody living with brain change, especially towards the middle to the later stages, their senses take over. Their words may not work anymore, or they can't process our words anymore, but the senses take over. So it could be their sense of touch, their sense of intuition, other parts of the body take over. So once we understand that, it helps us as a care partner just take a deep breath to regroup ourselves and understand they're having a hard time. Here's another thing that I love to share with families, especially with the frustrations that we feel. So, Laura, what's this?
A Q-tip.
How do you spell Q-tip?
Ooh, you're going to put me to the test. Q-T-I-P.
Quit taking it personally. So I tell families, just tape this on your medicine cabinet or somewhere. But whenever your person, you get so frustrated, quit taking it personally.
Wise words. One thing I was thinking when you were sharing those two examples of the incontinence and then the loud television, how does a care partner figure out what that trigger is? That just probably over the course of time, but maybe you can share a little bit about how you and the care staff at the community figured some of these things out, particularly the incontinence, because nobody can see or hear right what's going on. The television seems a little more intuitive, but with the incontinence, how did you get to the bottom of that?
Yeah. A challenge for many families, including my sisters and I, Mom and Dad had lived in another state, and so we weren't with her on an everyday basis till we moved her here to Colorado Springs. So one of the words that we like to use is the word cueing, C-U-E-I-N-G, cueing. Really use our detective skills. Now, Laura, do you like watching detective shows?
I do, actually.
Okay, so what do you like about detective shows?
The mystery of it.
Okay.
Trying to follow along and figure out what's going on.
Okay, try to figure out what's going on. Okay, so one of the things on detective shows, they put it all out there. They have those, the wall boards, either the whiteboard or the clear board, and they put out all the cues, all the signals, all the little tips or whatever. And when you look at the bigger picture, it helps you to hone in on what might be going. So a lot of it is, as a care partner, our observation skills. With my sisters and I, we would choose to spend a couple of hours with her just to see what might be happening. was it close to dinner time and she was hungry? Or had she just had, she loved Coke or Pepsi and she would chug them like crazy. Was it within a couple of hours of chugging down all the Coke or Pepsi? So watching for those cues, the visual cues that they might give us. Or the other thing too is just kind of the body language. Really watch their body language. And going along with cueing, here's the other thing too, tied within to the incontinence. We learned what mom's cues were when she had to go to the bathroom. But the other thing that we did was give her cues, because later on in the disease, we couldn't say to her, hey, Mom, do you have to go to the bathroom? Because her brain would not process, do you have to go to the bathroom? So I knew the cues of her kind of, the movement, the shifting and all of that. So I would say, hey, Mom, let's go get a cookie in the kitchen. And we would just happen to bypass the bathroom. And then we would say, ooh, Mom, let's stop here first. And then I would take her into the bathroom and just start helping her get her underwear down and get her on the toilet. So it gave her dignity, because I didn't say, Mom, you got to go to the bathroom before we go. You got to go to the bathroom. That's not dignity for an 80-year-old woman. But I cued her. I gave her the visual cues of, ooh, let's go here. I took her in there. And then I would even do cues of just my hand movement of me pulling down her pants so that she could join in. A lot of that is muscle memory. We use their muscle memory to help them do things.
For themselves.
Yeah.
Those are great as well. Those
Yeah.
are wonderful. So you'd mentioned earlier a little bit about Teepa Snow. Can you share a little bit more about her teachings, and what things that you think our viewers would like to learn?
Yeah. About 8 years ago, I heard about this lady called Teepa Snow, and I thought, what the heck is a Teepa Snow? So I took her 8-hour training in Denver, and I was absolutely fascinated because, like I said, I had been an Alzheimer's educator for many, many years before that, but we were always taught in the past to do to the person who's living with brain change, redirect them, get them away when they're having a behavior. And with Teepa Snow, her whole approach is, how do we change to work with what the person living with dementia can still do? What can we do visually, verbally, touch? How do we work with their brain changes instead of against? So saved my pennies literally for a year, went out to Seattle and got certified as a trainer and a coach in using her techniques. So you can go, anybody can go to teepasnow.com, Teepa snow.com. Online, she has a lot of free resources. She also has some really short, less than 10-minute YouTube videos that are really, really helpful. And of course, locally, we offer the Teepa Snow training through Gentle Shepherd Dementia Training. So go to those resources. Teepa Snow is just amazing. The other thing, too, that we're very blessed here in Colorado Springs, that we have a huge community of professionals who are experts in working with folks with brain change, and especially the Alzheimer's Association. If you go to alz.org, there's many resources there. There's a 24-hour hotline that the Alzheimer's Association has. And we're just very blessed here. We are a dementia-friendly certified community through Dementia Friendly America. So we have a lot of local resources.
What does that entail? What makes you dementia friendly in the community?
Part of the Dementia Friendly Colorado Springs is that we just have a core group of people that, like what we're doing here right now, just educating the community on how do you work with the person with brain change, because our whole goal is to have quality of life for somebody living with brain change instead of just throwing them into a locked unit. And I hate that word locked unit, but that's what a lot of people still call a memory care. Our goal is to provide the best quality of care as a care partner instead of a caregiver.
Well, it's fantastic to hear we have those resources here in our community. There's so many people touched by dementia. And one thing I want to mention is I work closely with the Alzheimer's Association as well. And I want people watching today to know that any form of dementia can benefit from reaching out to the Alzheimer's. It's not exclusive to that particular form of dementia. So
You know, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people say, oh, well, my mom doesn't have Alzheimer's, she just has dementia, or, oh, they're just senile or whatever. What we know is there's over 100 different types of dementia. And dementia just means brain change where the brain does not process their world. So somebody could have two forms of dementia at the same time. They could have one or the other, but the bottom line is we have a lot of resources here.
Well, Sheryl, I want you to know, I've known you for years, so we'll be transparent about that, but I want you to know how much I appreciate you coming here today, sharing your personal experience as well as your professional experience. I think this is going to be really helpful for care partners in our community, just to know, just simply to know that there's other people out there walking through this journey, and knowing you don't have to do this alone. There are tools out there, there's books out there, there's certifications, there's websites. So all of this has been really valuable, and I sure appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're always working to bring you more resources and support, whether it's new videos, upcoming caregiver events, or helpful tools you can use right away. If this video helped, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you know someone who could use this info, share it with them. We're in this together.